Welcome everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about a very little known golden visa program, which actually leads to expedited citizenship in an EU country and has no minimum stay requirements, which sounds really fantastic. At the same time, I will tell you about a residency program in that country. This being said, I will warn you in advance, there are some challenges with both these. However, potentially very interesting and something that nobody out there is talking about that I've seen. So we're going to dive in, and this is a follow-up a little bit to the video I did on the Austrian program. And yeah, at the beginning of that program I was asking, well, where do you think that I am? And so we are here in beautiful Slovakia. Now, Slovakia, if you have not been here before, most people don't come here. It's not a place that people typically come to visit. The capital is Bratislava. It's a country of about 5 million people. Former Czechoslovakia, they split apart, so Czech Republic and Slovakia. And so kind of Eastern-ish Europe. Bratislava is super close to Vienna, about an hour away by train. And today I am in a small town called Piestany, which is a spa town. And so why was Michael in here? Quickly, so I've had chronic back issues over a number of years and had quite a bad bout of that recently, back last fall. And so I was kind of working on what to do about solving these problems, and a good friend of mine said, just do functional patterns. It's like amazing. It's as though you discovered Bitcoin in 2011. And I'm like, well, that sounds pretty cool. So I, at the time, flew into Taipei and spent a month working with an expert there. And so one of the experts is here in Piestany. And so I'm kind of gradually checking out these experts. Highly recommend functional patterns, super cool. Very, very helpful in terms of your biomechanics and overall health and structure and things like this. So that is why I am here, which is actually like a surprisingly nice little town, 28,000 people, about an hour from Bratislava. So it's nicer than I was expecting. Anyway, so let's dive in and talk about residencies in Slovakia, okay? So interestingly, I'm going to talk to you about two programs. One is their sort of golden visa program. Another is sort of the regular visa path that you might take, which happens to be relatively okay in itself if you're just looking for residency. There's actually two ways that you can do that, so I'll kind of break them up accordingly and give you a little bit of an overview so you can have some understanding. The first one, not the golden visa one, we'll save that one for the end, is based on either becoming a sole proprietor or forming a company. So that's kind of your two options, right? You can become a sole proprietor, you can form a company, and you deposit money into there and you run a company. Surprise, surprise. Fairly easy acceptance criteria. Yeah, you have to have a place to stay. You have to actually form the company if you're going to go that route. You need to open a bank account for the company as well as for yourself personally, deposit money. You need to have health insurance, all the normal stuff. The process takes about 90 days to go through in getting approvals. Back a decent number of years ago, kind of pre-COVID, we were helping some people with these types of programs more frequently. It is noteworthy that, so you need to spend 183 days in the country if you are sole proprietor for sure, if you want to be renewed. So you basically can be denied renewal if you don't. And so, not necessarily what people want if they're looking for a Schengen visa, but it is pretty good to be able to have access. And that's great. Now, unfortunately, what does that do? That puts you into the tax system. And the tax system in Slovakia is not great. I will, in a future video, go through and talk about Slovakian taxes and what you can do in that regard. We haven't had a ton of clients from Slovakia. I think it's around a dozen or so clients who have actually been Slovakian over the years. So, not the most common place. But that being said, some people come from there. Now, interestingly, if you form a company, so you're not a sole proprietor, you form a company, then potentially you can not have that minimum stay requirement and still renew, which is pretty great. It's typically a 1-year visa. You renew for 5 years, then you can get permanent residency. And if you go 3 more years, you can get citizenship if you demonstrate Slovakian language, etc. Which, like if you're actually going to integrate, you probably would do that. If you're just kind of doing it as a residency, probably not, right? Much less likely that you would go and learn the language because it's just not that common for most people, right? So anyway, that's something that one can consider if they want to go for the citizenship. It is a good passport. I mean, it's an EU passport. It's quite good. The trade-off is that they don't allow dual citizenship, so you would have to give up your other passport. Not necessarily that great, right? But this being said, not the worst if you're moving from a much worse passport to a much better passport. So you can consider. Also, when it comes to the stay requirements inside the country, if you're in a situation where you're wanting to spend some more time outside, it is a Schengen country, and so as a result, they can't really tell where you are within the Schengen zone. So typically, that's 6 months. In practice, is 6 months or 183 days a year in the Schengen zone, rather than 183 days a year inside Slovakia itself, although technically the rule is you're supposed to spend the time there. Obviously, this gives you freedom of movement within the Schengen zone, so if you're moving somewhere else, that's great. The company, notably, has to be a legitimate company. So the company cannot just be for the purposes of getting residency. That is illegal. A lot of countries don't have such a provision, but Slovakia actually does. So anyway, is what it is. But if you're in a situation where you wanted to, say, hire some people and actually do some real work, then hey, like, nothing wrong with going in that direction. Gives you kind of this added benefit, and that's fairly appealing. They do not recognize common law, so you typically can't have family reunification with common law spouses, and they do not recognize gay marriage, so you cannot have family reunification through gay spouses. So those are all limitations on the programs here. The next thing is kind of the more interesting one, and that is this. It's not technically called a golden visa, it's called a major investor scheme. And again, it's something that I don't hear anyone talking about. It's one of these kind of things you have to dig up. But this is where you invest money. Now, you're not investing it in real estate like you would in some programs. You have to actually do job creation, some sort of value. There's not a fixed investment amount, but typically it needs to be a higher amount. So definitely more than 250K, typically 500-ish, depending. Obviously, the more you do, the more you invest, etc., the more likely you are to get approved. This is not a fast process. It's typically up to a 2-year process to get this. However, there's a bunch of really good things. No minimum stay requirement. You could, let's just imagine, what is your situation that you would want to do this program? You get a Schengen visa that has no minimum stay requirements. Amazing. It gives an expedited path to citizenship, 1 to 3 years, depending on various factors. It's discretionary, so it's not a fixed thing in terms of how that would go. It gives you, obviously all the benefits of Schengen access, et cetera, And so if you were gonna say, well, I'm gonna be hiring some people anyway, I'm gonna be setting some stuff up anyway, it is probably one of the easier paths. A lot of countries have paths where if you invest sufficiently in the country, you can get some value out of it in terms of residencies, citizenships, etc. But a lot of them are quite difficult and quite unclear. This one is one of the easier ones to qualify for. And so, yeah, if you're gonna say you're setting up a software development house or some sort of marketing company or something, and you can hire people anywhere, wages are about 1,500 euros a month. So more expensive than some place like Bulgaria, Romania, but less than some place like Austria or Germany or Switzerland or something like that. So these things are all fairly beneficial for those who want to go through it. Obviously, it takes time. It's not like a, hey, plan it immediately. But then again, like a Portuguese golden visa is taking a couple of years to get approved these days anyway. So, not so different in that regard. In fact, quite a bit more efficient. And maybe you like Slovakia. Like I said, it's actually quite nice in certain areas. I find that Bratislava it feels quite post-Soviet. So it feels a lot like Sofia, Bulgaria, for those who have been there. Maybe nicer in that there's a river and there's castles and stuff like this. So there are some things like that. But yeah, definitely has very much that vibe and that feel. However, like I said, you're an hour from Vienna. You're not necessarily that well connected by air in Bratislava, I find. But Vienna is super well connected by air. And so it's pretty easy to go and move from from Bratislava to Vienna, catch a flight and fly out to all over the place with direct flights. And so that's really good for you as well. Anyway, those are kind of some general overviews. If you guys are interested, please reach out to us. You can book a call with me, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer, link in the description below. We can help you with residencies, with international tax planning, with all these sorts of things like that. And I will be making a whole bunch more videos expanding on these points and giving a lot more detail on the tax side of things, as well as we have a whole bunch of other videos along that. So hit the subscribe button and let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and I will look forward to seeing you on the next video.